Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay, and welcome to the Battle for Azeroth beta and the second pass for the Elemental Shaman. Sorry for the bit of delay, and thank you for all the well wishes on Twitter. But let's get through Elemental Shaman. There's gonna be a bunch of nitty-gritty to go over in this video and the next one coming out, depending on when you're watching this, tomorrow or not sure when, for enhancement. This is the Elemental video. We're going to go over talent adjustments, spells and abilities that have been lost or gained, what's been kept from your Legion artifacts and or legendaries, any new graphics, a brief review of the War Mode talent system, and any GCD changes. There, of course, is no true gameplay in this series, so consider this more of a one-man podcast walkthrough primer, where I hit some target dummies and talk to you about how your spec is going to be like going from Legion into the Battle for Azeroth. The entire second pass testing, of course, is listed right down below in the video description box. It's over on my Twitch channel, so you can go check that out if you'd like. Both Enhancement and Elemental were like 5 hours, I want to say, so there was a lot of stuff to go over. Just a lot of discussion, a lot of fact-finding, a lot of sponging up of ideas and things. So you can go check that out if you like. And then, of course, down below in the comment section, leave your thoughts, issues, problems. Just, you know, keep it civil. We're all in this together. And then, of course, if you do enjoy my ramblings and or if it's your first time to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button to know when any new videos do go out. So we're just hanging out here, and it will be for the first bit here. I had to sort of balance this video around a bit around cooldowns because I do these in one take, go through my notes, that kind of stuff. But I have to make sure that, first off, that my notes are in the right spot here so I don't keep clicking off the screen. That's important. Good. And I have to make sure we go through all the little nitty-gritty bits and pieces here. First off, I'm so sorry. I don't know why this is a thing that keeps happening, but if you haven't kept up with the patch notes, you had one of the greatest small quality of life fixes for Elemental Shaman very recently, where they finally decoupled meatball from sauce. So Flame Shock didn't need to be required to get a guaranteed crit on Lava Burst. This has been reverted as of about, I guess now it's like 3 builds ago. There have been multiple little small builds that happened over the last couple of days. You still need to have Flame Shock on the target to get Lava Burst crits. That is back. Duration of Flame Shock is 18 seconds baseline now, 24 when pandemicked. And I put in here, no longer required Lava Burst to crit, reverted in a recent patch. The problem with this is that Flame Shock has the new 6-second shock cooldown, not affected by haste. So you can have a number of Flame Shocks active. That is totally possible. But the real issue here is that it does cut down your target switching potential, because normally you'd want to keep your Flame Shock active on a target and definitely pandemic it so that you could keep doing what you need to do. But because of this, it goes 24 seconds when you pandemic. That's fine. It still is going to limit you heavily in doing so. Now, of course, not to like get a little bit whiny or, you know, highfalutin here. When you know you get to target switch on a part of an encounter, once you get that muscle memory, it's not a big deal, because you're going to have your Flame Shock up when you need a target switch, and you're not going to just randomly continuously spam it to keep pandemicking on the one target you're on, right? You're just not going to do that. You're going to have it properly. It's just part of the little thing. You're going to... I was just hoping that it wasn't going to be as big of a deal. So I wanted to go over that. Case in point, right off the bat, kind of has been the recent change. Additionally, I did not transmog my weapons in this video because this has been finally fixed, implemented, and I haven't talked about it in other videos yet. To transmog any weapon, you notice I have a shield, of course, and a mace on. This is a happy note to couple against the Flame Shock Lava Burst note. In the transmog tab now, there is a Legion Artifacts tab. And this will just override whatever it is that you're currently... We'll put on that one right there, and it will automatically pair the shield up with it as well. Sometimes you can actually put a different shield on, but what they've done recently is they've made it so that your shield, in this case, only sees the fist weapon, right? In this case for Elemental Shaman. So before you could like make it one fist weapon and then a different shield, which I thought was kind of neat. But what you can still do is go into other shields, right? after you go away from, give me this, hit apply, go back in, go to your shield, go off of this tab. Nope, they've actually broken that. Never mind then. They actually broke that in the recent build as well. So they fixed this part, but they broke the actually transmogging your shield. Are you kidding me? I did not know this before I started recording. That's actually really funny. But at least you can do this over whatever you'd like to now. They just have to fix this. So I guess if you go back to like an axe or something, then it will break. Yeah, okay. Then it fixes it and it decouples. Okay. So they really locked you in. Now you cannot mix and match your color, which I thought was kind of weird, but maybe it's just like a coding issue, a database like lookup table problem. But if you pick a artifact, you cannot go away from the shield of that artifact. So be it. But it exists, right? You can at least do that. That's okay. Additionally, let's go over the rest of your baseline stuff here. We have Tremor Totem is coming back. People keep on like, well, how, you know, Shaman's going to be for their utility in Mythic Plus or whatever. Well, we have baseline. It's Fear, Charm, and Sleep removal. There are some of these effects present in dungeons, so this will actually be pretty good to have. We also have baseline Capacitor Totem as my mouse breaks. So we have our baseline throwable stun. Cap Totem has been recently reverted back from the Lightning Surge Madness. It's a 3-second 8-yard AoE stun. 2-second base arm time. So that's still there. Of course, you can still talent into Wind Rush. You have a new talent called Static Charge, which will reduce the cooldown of Cap Totem by up to 20 seconds if it hits at least 4 enemy targets. Takes off 5 seconds per enemy target stunned. So just more stuns, right? That'll help for sure. Additionally, you still have our Earthbind Totem. The weird thing about this is that we don't have Earth Grab anymore as DPS Shamans. Both Elemental and Enhancement lost Earth Grab. Only Resto has that. But I think that's to help Resto's Mythic Plus kit bolster against the other healers. They have other tools, of course. You can go check out the Restoration Shaman video for more on that. And I will correct myself, or at least amend something that I talked about in the Resto video in this video when we get to it. That's totally something that I will admit that I maybe overspoke about. And of course, Earth Elemental is baseline for all other Shaman. You're used to having Earth Elemental as Elemental. This is still very much here. That's the new Rocky animation. If you do take Primal Elementalist and get the not as good looking version of Rocky, he does still have the shield wall. That is still very much here. So you still have the extra defensive cooldown, the hardened skin, I believe is what it's called. So if you would like that, then you can still talent into it. Again, that competes with Earth and Rage and Ice Fury. Oh boy. And additional baseline things here is your baseline cooldown of Fire Elemental. Your base Fire Elemental. Yes, you can have them both up at the same time. You could have Rocky and the Fire Elemental up. That's the new Fire Elemental graphic as well. Looks pretty awesome. This baseline is quite good compared to the Storm Elemental update. So it's a 2.5-minute cooldown now, which is down from the 5-minute cooldown you had currently. Its duration, where'd he go? Its duration is 30 seconds, down from 1 minute. And while active, it makes your Flame Shock dot ticks generate 3 Maelstrom whenever it deals damage. This is per Flame Shock. So if you actually have the juggled 3 or the fall off juggle 4, you can juggle 3 Flame Shocks just fine right now. But once you go past that, if you have like an A and a B and a C, a Flame Shock, and you cast D, A falls off, and then you can refresh those 3. So you can sort of have like a revolving door, or you can have 3 consistent. Whenever they tick, you will gain Maelstrom. On single target, of course, not super noticeable, but once you have like the 2 or 3, it does get quite nice. But even on pure single target, because of the bits I'm going to get into once I get there, the Maelstrom generation is definitely helpful. But of course, it's still a ranged totem, stands next to you, Fire Blast, does a little fireball thing, whatever. The Primal version still does the Immolate, and again, looks worse, which is just an unfortunate side effect of the graphic update. But can't do anything about that. So it's up more often, the Fire Elemental, and then definitely helps with that bursty window of time. The problem with the Maelstrom generation system is that Blizzard doubled down on 2 different ways to slow down your Maelstrom. Now here, I'm going to do like a regular single target rotation right here. Nothing crazy. And I want to show you how, and this is without any huge talent interaction, that your Maelstrom generation on pure single target is definitely slower. Now, of course, I'm like a boosted animal character right now. I'm not incredibly geared, so don't think anything into that. But they definitely slowed down your rotation a bit. I'm getting talent procs right there, which of course we'll go through when we get there, but it's okay once it gets rolling. It really comes down to getting procs. So otherwise it just feels maybe a little slower, but I've been told at max level on single target it feels just fine. It just has a bit more of an ebb and a flow to it than you're used to. Granted, because there's no legendaries impacting this, not a lot of stuff like you, because Fist of Rauden is gone. It's okay. It's just that Blizzard did with Elemental Overload itself. You still have, of course, the chance for Lightning Bolt, Elemental Blast, Lava Burst, Chain Lightning, all those things to second cast, duplicate the cast, echo the cast, as it were. They will do 85% of normal damage, and they will generate less Maelstrom. Now, this less is... who knows? Sorry for the throat, by the way. I guess I haven't talked in a couple of days. Took a couple of days off. But Lava Burst is down to 8 Maelstrom from 12. Lightning Bolt is down to 6 from 8. And the real culprit here is Chain Lightning, 3 from 6 per target. Now, the less that you generate is half. However, it is 75% for Chain Lightning. You get 2. And then, of course, for the Meatball, you get 4. And for Lightning Bolt, you get 3. That's what the half means. Actually, look on the Fulmination passive right here. It shows you the actual amounts that you generate from Lightning Bolt, Lava Burst, and Chain Lightning. And the less, again, is half for Lightning Bolt and Meatball, and 75% or 2 for Chain Lightning. Which is... the single target stuff is okay. Mostly comes down to the fact that the Chain Lightning amount... I'm hitting 4 targets right now. Getting 12 per target is just... and there's an Earthquake, finally. There's a bit of a bit of a pacing problem sometimes. But maybe this gets better with Mastery. But again, I guess that's another proc of a talent. It's all right. But this is 4 targets. So you can imagine if you're doing 2 or 3 targets, they really are going to be a lot slower. And my feedback, again, that talent coming in play here, I think that Blizzard should have either just lowered the base Maelstrom, but then made your overloads just give you the same amount of Maelstrom power, or lowered these, but then made the overload give you the same, right? They did both. If I didn't talk over that, I think I mixed my words. They lowered the base generation and lowered the actual echo cost, the echo generation, right? The echo building. And that's like 2 hits on Maelstrom generation instead of just 1. Either cut down the overload or cut down the base amount, but not both. And that's weird that they did both. And that's the problem we talked about here. But overall, it'll still play. People were wondering if they did this because of the ability to stack and get a lot of mastery late game. But you're looking at maybe less than this right now at endgame for the first tier 1. We did a haste test in the Shadow Priest video, and this is for cloth and this is for haste, different stat. We only got to like 17%, factoring in like highest eye level in tier 1 BFA, all haste in all slots outside of the Azerite pieces, right? Because no haste in there. And that's a problem. There are some Azerite traits that I have been told help this, so maybe that's the whole point of why. But that's for you guys to figure out. Go to the Discord for that and go figure that out. They've got probably have a huge list of stuff, Google Documents. They've got all this stuff figured out. That's fine. Okay. But that is the baseline elemental overload stuff. Now, how do you spend your slightly slower generating amount of Maelstrom. So of course we just have Earthshock now, and I brought up this a few times on stream, and people were like dismissive of the fact of the new Earthshock change, as it's locked at 60, and it just has a flat amount of damage. There's no more scaling potential, there's no more pooling potential, there's none of that. But I brought this up before, and I didn't think this is a big deal. Blizzard has just seen how the community, how you have played Elemental Shaman for the last 3 expansions, and they've just slowly rolled that together, right? Remember where Fulmination first came from? It was lightning shield charges. And you never wanted to cap your lightning shield charges, because whenever you cast a spell you gain a charge, then overloads of course gave you more charges. So you'd always cast your Earthshock with your lightning shield charges underneath the cap. So okay, then they gave you the Maelstrom power bar. And the Maelstrom power bar would eat from a certain amount and then plus a whole bunch more, right? And just dump all your Maelstrom. But you always would, at least in the Gamble build, which became very popular, or even without it, you would never cast an Earthshock outside of rare experience, maybe PvP for burst, something like that, at full Maelstrom, because if you waste Maelstrom and you cast a Meatball and it overloads, or you cast a Chain Lightning Bolt and overloads, you waste Maelstrom power. So Blizzard just now just said, okay, fine, it's 60 flat. You can, of course, have the buffer zone when you go over 60 to not waste, but then it always just costs 60, which I think is fine. That doesn't make any, problematic issues for me. The issue that you saw there was Earthquake is now just flat 75. So it went up from 50 to 75, and you generate less AoE Maelstrom. So it just slows down the overall process of actually spending your Earthquakes. That's kind of the big hit. Now, I did get this confirmed, / we talked about this a whole lot. Earthquake says physical damage, but that is apparently for the school, so that if you are actually locked out of the nature school, you can still Earthquake. This is weird, however, due to the fact that it still ignores armor, because it deals magic damage, even though it says it deals physical damage. So it actually does way more damage than the tooltip even lets on, if this has not been fixed or not. So I'm going to put 1 Earthquake down on this target. Let me Earth and Rage stop here real quick. So it's saying it's doing 1650 damage. 1650. It's going to tick, I believe, 6 times. Yep, 1, 2, 3, 4, no, 5 times. 5 times? It casts last 6 seconds, ticks 5. Yeah. So this hitting 4, I'm gonna see if they fix this actually. I'm gonna pull up my calculator in this video because this was not working the other day. So it's that times 5. No, it did tick. I'm looking at the wrong thing. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It is 6 times. I got confused there. So it's 314 times 6. Yeah. So this, at 314 physical damage, times 6 is way more damage than the tooltip even says. That's still not working properly. So because it says physical damage, it actually did, or is doing 1884 damage, which now I'm wondering if that's actually just the armor amount. Nah, kind of. Because this is just not a correct formula in this tooltip, because it's saying physical but ignores armor. So the freak out about why is my AoE on a magic caster doing physical damage, but it's not, because it's ignoring armor. But that also means that it actually does more than the tooltip. I reported this bug weeks ago. Looks like it's still in the game, but that is the Earthquake over and under. You're going to be Earthquaking a little bit less often, but at least you know now that it's not being affected and nerfed and then just cut down by armor. It actually is doing more when the tooltip says. And of course, the knockdown effect is still there. And the knockdown effect is still very much here. But yeah, don't get confused. I was looking at green text because Earth and Rage, but it's still yellow text that's physical, where I think it should just be nature. I don't know. Whatever. It's fine. What do you think, Pupper? That's what I thought too. Yeah. And outside of that, other changes you saw already. Flame Shock is free. It doesn't have any Maelstrom spending attached to it. And then also, they removed the Frost Shock Maelstrom as well. Frost Shock is always free, has no cooldown, still has the 50% snare for 6 seconds. And get used to wherever you put your Frost Shock button, because whenever you move now, It's actually not bad damage, so it brings kind of like a vanilla meme back of like Frost Shock spam. This is your main movement tool. Next to, of course, refreshing your Flame Shock. Your main movement tool now, as the Elemental Shaman, is Frost Shocking on the move. Which isn't that bad. To compare current numbers, a Lightning Bolt is hitting for 633 nature damage. A Frost Shock is hitting for 576. It's actually not bad. Granted, it doesn't generate anything, so it obviously slows down your overall DPS, and it's a DPS loss in that regard. But for a movement tool, not bad. And if you missed spamming Frost Shock, and you want to go back to that old, the reroll video from, it was a Vanilla or Burning Crusade way back in the day. Frost Shock! That's back. You can do that all day because it costs nothing. Which is also a bit of a tool for the PvP world. You could, of course, spam Frost Shock on live right now, but you always want to hit it at the 20+ Maelstrom for the extra slow. But now the slow is just always 50% and the damage is normalized. And of course, you see there it procs Earth Enraged because that's, you know, a worthwhile talent. But everything else baseline is the same. That took us a while to get through because lots of little points to go over. But I mean, a Fire Elemental. Let's pop Fire Elemental down real quick here. I'll do with one. We'll do with one Flame Shock here, just to show you the extra generation there. Oh, I probably should have hit one of those guys first. We'll Pandemic here. But you'll see that the Energize Fire Elemental comes from every tick. So it definitely does raise how fast the rotation is going to be on pure single target. We'll just refresh there again. We'll refresh our Elemental Blast. But it is just kind of slower overall. But Blizzard definitely wanted to put a bit of a hard cap on how fast you're going to generate Maelstrom because of that change. But again, I'm not putting any talents into this right now, except you see Earth Enraged flying off the... Yeah, okay. But that's okay. To go over everything else in the spellbook, I think there's nothing else to really go over. They haven't changed the new way you heal yet. They haven't given you the instant cast surges. Purge, of course, is still here. Thunderstorm is still epic and awesome, and we'll see all the knockbacks in Battlegrounds. Yep, they haven't buffed Reincarnation. Still 20% health, 20% mana. So let's go over your talents now. With all of that out of the way, talents get a little more easier to go through. And I want to jump around in this when we get here. I'll bring up your live talents. That's not the wrong one. That's this one. So as with any other talent combinations, there's a lot of just moving around and shaking of where things land. But talents removed, we have Path of Flame, Gust of Wind. Moment of silence for Gust of Wind. Lightning Surge Totem, of course, because baseline now, replaced with the Static Charge talent. Voodoo Totem and Earth Grab Totem. Ancestral Swiftness, it was just totally fine. This is a boring haste modifier. Elemental Mastery, Elemental Fusion, and I would say, unfortunately, Lightning Rod. But I mean, the amount of ridiculous RNG Lightning Rod would either give you or not give you was unfortunate and fun, but that's how it is. Talents that were updated, of course. They actually buffed your Ancestral Guidance, which they just keep trying and keep giving you, the Elemental Shaman AG, but not me, the Enhancement Shaman AG, where we really want it. So it's 25% healing converted from damage, up from 20%. Aftershock, which is your legendary bits, the chance has been increased to 25%, up from 20%, but now it is your spells have a 25% chance to refund the Maelstrom spent on them. So unlike the Gamble Boots on live, this can actually work, as I showed off earlier in the video when it kept happening, on Earthshock and Earthquake, which almost makes Aftershock the mandatory talent for AoE in this tier, because your other talent that compares with this now, your new Master of the Elements. So this is one of your tier bonuses on live, I believe. I actually don't have the note written down properly here. This does not work because, again, it's a physical school. Master of the Elements does not affect your Earthquake. Its Lava Bursts equals your next Nature or Frost spell by 20%. You're not going to Lava Burst on AoE, so I guess they don't want you to use this. And it'll affect your Chain Lightning, but you mostly want to use Chain Lightning to build, and this is a guaranteed Chain Lightning amp if you throw some meatballs in AoE, versus this is a chance to give you more Earthquakes. And then, of course, Totem Mastery remains the same, which has AoE components too, right? Storm Totem, right? And the Tailwind to give you a little bit more haste, and the Resonance a little bit more mastery, or a little more mastery. It's Maelstrom, but that's a weird one where Master of the Elements kind of is hamstrung because Earthquake, again, is physical school, not nature school. The Aftershock can be really funny because you can just get a ton of Earthquakes in a row or a ton of Earthshocks in a row. That's that. So Primal Elementalist, both Storm and Fire Elemental will gain one new ability. So I'll go over Primal Elementalist real quick here with the Fire Elemental. So again, he's gonna look like crap. Yay! So your Fire Elemental gains Meteor, which is basically a copy and paste from the Mage Meteor spell. It actually does not Meteor properly, though. It actually doesn't spread the damage out. I can't really test past like 3 to 4 targets here. So if you know if it actually does split damage, then of course let us know. But it's a 1-minute cooldown. You can't actually see it right here. And it doesn't show up in your pet ability tab, which I reported as well. You can't pull it off. You can't take pet abilities off the pet bar, and it doesn't show up in the damn window. But your baseline Fire Elemental does then become a bit more of a AoE burst tool as well, due to the fact that it's going to give you the Immolate, the more single target damage, of course, and then give you the Meteor effect as well, which is nice. The Storm Elemental now. So while these are cooling down in a different pattern here, Storm Elemental, which replaces Fire Elemental, same cooldown, calls forth a greater Storm Elemental Totem that hurls gusts of wind to damage the shaman's enemies for 30 seconds. When the Storm Elemental is active, each time you cast Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning, the cast time of your Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning is reduced by 3% up to 20 stacks. Fundamentally, this is hamstrung by its own global cooldown, because cast time reduction is not haste. Cast time reduction is reducing the base cast of an ability up to as many stacks as you can gain, but it limits itself because you cannot cast any faster than whatever your global cooldown is going to be. And as you're going to lose haste and not have a ton of haste at the end game, at least currently right now to start out with, right? Or even they'll curse the whole expansion because of the way the secondary stats have been squished. You can get your Lightning Bolt down to a 1-second cast time, but you physically cannot cast more than 1.3 seconds. So Storm Elemental also is just kind of weird. It's also awkwardly placed. It's nestled between Liquid Magma Totem. Let me move your talents here. You don't need to see them anymore. Liquid Magma Totem, which is obviously burst, single target, kind of, but mostly AoE. And High Voltage, which is Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning have a 50% of your normal mastery chance to cause a second elemental overload. This was quote-unquote nerfed in the recent build. It was just 2 rolls of your mastery before. So yeah, it was cut down a bit, but obviously it had to be balanced against the talents it was with. But High Voltage is still really fun because, yes, you can definitely spaghetti finger some pretty crazy numbers out with getting Chain Lightnings to proc over and over again. But Storm Elemental is here, and it works the same with Primal. Like, the actual Storm Elemental bonus will stack the same, so I'll show off the Primal Elemental version of it, which is actually pretty ridiculous. The Primal version of this has a new ability called Eye of the Storm, which, when it's active, and again, you can't see it in the spell book because it doesn't exist, it still buffs itself, but it's called Eye of the Storm. It deals nature damage to the target every 1 second, scaling with your haste. Each time it deals damage to the target and all their nearby targets. The numbers don't show up for some reason. You're seeing it's hitting all 3 targets here. And damage goes up by 5%. So the Storm Elemental's burst AoE potential is probably way higher than Fire Elemental. That's because, you know, it's double talenting worth of this. You got to make sure you cast his Call Lightning effect first, though. You have to want the Call Lightning buff to go off, and then you want to cast Eye of the Storm because it still buffs himself. The Eye of the Storm hits everything around it nearby. It's an 8-yard AoE channeled, and it goes up to some pretty good damage at the end there. It's some pretty solid numbers as it scales up and up and up and up and up and up. So that is what the Storm Elemental does. Now, of course, when it's active, when it comes back around the cooldown here, I will show you that the cast time cannot be reduced to gain any benefit, right? Which of course that means it'll scale with things like heroism and stuff, where you can actually lower your global cooldown. But there's a fundamental baseline problem with it, decoupled from massive haste proc potential, which may or may not even exist, or heroism. It doesn't give you as much benefit as it could if it was just giving you like a haste stacker, which will take the cast time down because of haste, and also the GCD down because that's what haste does. Every 10% haste is 0.1 seconds off the GCD, and as a caster or a class not locked to the 1 second global, if you get to 100% haste, you'll have a 0.75 second GCD, right? That's 1.5 seconds by itself. If you double your haste, 100% haste, it cuts it down by half to 0.75. And that's beneficial, but in what world are you going to live in where a Storm Elemental actually lets you couple it up with all of that at the same time outside of heroism? That's just an unfortunate pairing compared to Liquid Magma Totem, which will always scale with your haste every 1 minute, because the more haste you have, the more globules of fall out. And then high voltage, just the more cast you can actually cast a lightning bolt and chain lightning, the more chances you are to roll your mastery at half effectiveness to get more lightning bolts and stuff. So Storm Elemental is ready to go. I'm going to actually go over here to Totem Mastery to get a little bit more haste. Barely any more haste. We're going to keep Elemental Blast here, and we're going to Storm Elemental with the Primal Elementalist buff. We're also going to talk about how Storm Keeper, which stays from your legendary, stays from your artifact weapon. This is your activatable. This only is a 1 minute cooldown, but its next 2 lightning bolts or chain lightnings can be instant, and it trigger an elemental overload on every target. This can, of course, force high voltage to roll again, which is nice, but we're going Storm Elemental here. But to make the best use of Storm Elemental, it looks like you may have to, most likely, go with the new unlimited power talent. Now, Star Wars jokes aside, when your spells cause an elemental overload, you gain 2% haste for 10 seconds. Gaining a stack does not refresh the duration of unlimited power. Now, this with the high voltage by itself can be good, because 2 procs will give you 2 stacks of unlimited power. But because we're showing off Storm Elemental and Primal again, we'll keep the Totem Mastery here just for the base and extra chance. Now, I'm going to actually combine this with Heroism. Although Resonance Totem spam is so ridiculous. Get out of here. So, just to show you what it can potentially do. I gotta go over my spellbook real quick here so you can see the, whoops, that the cast time is going to keep going down. I'm not going to cast any of the spells. I want you to see how fast this goes. But my GCD, as you see there, is way higher. My global right now is 0.88, 0.86. So I can't take use of the fact that this is a 0.4 second cast, because I can't cast any faster than 0.9 seconds. So I'm casting on my GCD. And this is ridiculous. Did you see those lightning bolts? I mean, did you see those lightning bolts on the side of the screen? So it's a lot of chain lightning spaghetti. But again, you can never make use of this cast time reduction because you can only cast as fast as your GCD will allow. Which is a bit of a hamstring moment, and I don't know why they forcibly hamstrung this combination, because that was a fun thing I was looking at in the alpha, early beta build at least with this combination, is if they fixed this, that would be really ridiculous. But that is how Storm Elemental and I could have done the Primal Elementalist thing there. I was just mostly focusing on because he will obviously cast more zappy zaps and faster with the Eye of the Storm buff if you actually have that much haste. So, because your haste from limited power will also make Storm Elemental cast faster, right? It all smooshes together. So, whenever a couple of your new talents added, your other ones, let's actually get rid of these totems here. You can't actually get rid of your totems, so you have to, talent away from those, because Resonance Totem is going to spam me. So, other talents then that are added as well, we went over all that stuff, is that Ice Fury got a big change. 30-second cooldown Ice Fury. The cast of Ice Fury can overload just for more damage and half of the Maelstrom generation. The next 4 Frost Shocks will deal double damage. Generates 15 Maelstrom down from 25 on the cast, but again, get up the overload. Does not work with high voltage. This is only a lightning bolt and chain lightning. But Frost Shock doesn't cost Maelstrom power anymore, so weaving Ice Furies with a potential Master of the Elements build may be a thing. I tried this out on the testing stream a little bit, and it's okay. You only have so much time with Ice Fury, though. Or did I bind Ice Fury? To A. So Ice Fury only gives you a buff for 15 seconds. So you don't have enough time to weave and be guaranteed to weave spells unless you actually have... This is an Aftershock procs. There we go. Unless you actually have, say, Echo and Master and 2 or 3 targets Flame Shock juggled, then maybe you could Lava Burst, Ice Fury, Lava Burst, Ice Fury, Lava Burst, Ice Fury. The amount of damage that the Frost Shock does is way more than the actual cast of Ice Fury as well. So you'd want to Lava Burst, with Master of the Elements anyway, into the actual Frost Shock if you're min-maxing in that regard. It's potential for burst and movement, because if you got juggled Flame Shocks, then you could Ice Fury between them, which could be a thing, but may or may not actually come down numerically based on the encounter. Ice Fury in this tier is rotational burst and rotational build, because you can guarantee an Ice Fury, and again, you can couple this with Liquid Magma as well, because every other minute, or every other 30 seconds in this case, you could have burstable things, right? Because Liquid Magma will burst, and then of course you can burst with Ice Fury every minute while moving. It's all mobile stuff. So just to look there, you got the hard cast the Ice Fury first, of course, but then, you know, you're mobile after you do so. Right, throwing those Frost Shocks out there. Not too bad. Other new talents, of course, Exposed Elements. This is an old throwback to Alpha, when Earth Shock was basically a build up to and then debuff the target. And what would happen is you debuff the target to take more damage from follow-up lightning bolts and generate more Maelstrom. This is now a talent that is far weaker. It only makes Earth Shock increase the damage of the next lightning bolt by 100%. This does work with High Voltage and Stormkeeper, though. So because the initial lightning bolt is your buffed one, overloaded targets on exposed will buff the exposed overloads also, even though it only says 1 lightning bolt your next, but because lightning bolt, it counts as 1 instance if you do this together. So to show this off in the combat log here, if you actually just build and spend, and you actually get to, okay, that's all right. I'm just gonna build with some chain lightning, so it'll be a little bit faster, just a little bit faster. So now if I Earth Shock the target, it's got that 1 debuff for a lightning bolt follow-up, and then you zap it, give the double damage lightning bolt, and of course I got a reset. Now if you Stormkeeper into that and get the guaranteed overload, again, less damage, because that's what overloads do, for 85% of normal, it's still gaining the bonus of doubling and then minus the 15% damage. So that still works with the Exposed Elements build. So there's like a lightning build you can play here that may or may not be worth it. But the old version of this was a lot, I think, better. I kind of wish they could have left that on like the base Earth Shock and let it just deal damage, but so be it. Okay, we went over Master of the Elements quite a bit here, and of course you can combine Master of the Elements with Exposed Elements, is all sort of coupled together if you want to juggle like that. The new Spirit Wolf. From a DPS standpoint, this is a almost insulting talent outside of very niche situations where you can actually sit in Spirit Wolf. The bonus of Spirit Wolf takes 5 seconds to stack, but it's 5% increased movement speed and 5% damage reduction every 1 second up to 4 stacks after 5 seconds of being in Ghost Wolf. It does not last at all once you leave Ghost Wolf. So there's a couple situations like Eminar and the intermissions on Kill Jaden where you can make use of Spirit Wolf. Obviously PvP is going to be a good place for Spirit Wolf to be, but for PvE, you're looking at Earth Shield most likely. This comes back to all Shaman, and Elemental and Resto can have Earth Shield as well. It gives 10% more healing on your heals on the Earth Shielded target, and whenever you take damage, you will every 3 seconds or so, you'll be able to heal for a very small amount. They proc heal is definitely there. This is good for soloing, but in raids, the heal is quite weak. However, the actual 10% amp is quite nice when you actually heal yourself, which, again, of course, is definitely a thing that Elemental and Enhancement Shamans do. And then, again, we went over Static Charge. So this is your sort of your CC-ish DR tier, I guess, in that regard. So we went over High Voltage and Static Charge already. High Voltage, again, was quote-unquote nerfed. It was slowed down in comparison to the talents it's on. It had to be just, you know, it was changed. Not a true numbers nerf. Nothing is a nerf until it's live. And then Nature's Guardian. So I want to make sure I preface this and go over this right now. It's going to be a longer video, as both of these are going to be. Nature's Guardian. When your health is brought below 35%, you will instantly heal for 20% of your maximum health. It cannot occur more than once every 45 seconds. I've gone over this on stream a lot. I have gotten some guff from the, I guess, the Resto Shaman community specifically, because I called this a Shaman cheat death. Because it can do that. However, it's more of a shamanistic death prevention possibility, right? So how this currently works, and we are thinking that it is a bug, is that the game knows the damage that's going out per tick, right? Per tick rate in the back end. And we have different screenshots, the one that I have, that shows I took fatal damage with an overkill, did not die, the heal procced after the fatal damage, and then I had enough HP to survive the next follow-up hit. However, there are ones where if you are higher health, like say 90% health, and you do get, you know, globaled or one-shot past your 35% health, the heal is applying before the damage, because again, the game knows the damage coming in, and you actually overheal because you're at like 90% health, so the 20% of your health, just 10% of it goes away, and then you'll still die if the damage was great enough. So this is problematic because this should be reacting to damage and never healing before the damage event exists. So it may just be stacked in the code in the wrong order, or not having like a point-something second delay to always react to damage. Because proactively doing it to damage means that it can do nothing. But how it's functionally supposed to work, and what I say, is that if you're low health, like 50%, 40% health, and this is off cooldown, and then you get chunked, as long as that chunk is not greater than 20% of your HP in overkill, you will survive. So it is a shaman death preventionist kind of thing. It's not a cheat death. Cheat death obviously stops all damage coming in essentially by 99% on a rogue, which has a 6-minute cooldown. This can save you, and it will and should if they get the stack right. Right now it might be bugged. It's still very good, and it'll be a huge set and forget, at least for me, for rating. I'm going to turn this off. This is getting bothersome. And I wanted to make sure we are on the same page with Nature's Guardian, that it's not a true cheat death. It's a shamanistic version of death prevention if the stack is correct. On that note, we also went over unlimited power already and the new Stormkeeper. So everything else was just shuffled around. Again, if you want to look at your talents to compare again, the shuffling was quite real. There is some feedback I was given from the Elemental Shaman community a bit that Storm Elemental by itself is on an AoE tier, but actually doesn't affect AoE outside of just the Chain Lightning cast time reduction. But again, you're hamstrung by it. Master of the Elements does not affect AoE, because A, you're either not going to cast Lava Burst during AoE, or only buffs Chain Lightning. It won't buff Earthquake. The Flame Shock cooldown and being locked to cast Lava Burst cast on Flame Shock targets. It's a huge burden, and we were really happy that it was going away, but it is still there. And again, I was told Maelstrom generation on single target is fine. AoE Maelstrom is definitely the lackluster part of this, which you can kind of get around that. Again, you can take high voltage, and you can take aftershock, and you can hopefully get a really good string of resets on getting either more high voltage rolls or getting really lucky with free... didn't proc. If you get the aftershock procs on Earthquake, obviously that'll be huge. But I mean, it's not too terrible. This is obviously 4 targets right here. So lower targets than 4 may prove a little problematic in the Maelstrom department. But I've already went over the Maelstrom stuff quite a lot in the earlier video. Yeah. I don't know. Aftershock versus Totem Mastery for guaranteed gen versus not. I'm not sure. That definitely slowed down your AoE a little bit. Yeah, I'm not getting any procs. It's only a 25% chance per cast, so But outside of that, that is the Elemental Shaman. There's still the problem with elementals not profiting from your crit damage amp of Elemental Fury. This does not affect your Guardians. They also do not scale with your Mastery either. They don't have their own potential to overload their casts. So the more crit on gear, the weaker the Elementals are in comparison to the Shaman as well as Mastery. So that's unfortunate. And then again, I already said multiple times that get ready to love your Frost Shock spam. And then I also was told that Stormkeeper chain lightning against the optimal 5 targets doesn't generate enough Maelstrom to even do 1 earthquake. So you make sure you have to waste, it makes you waste the second one, which overcaps your Maelstrom and then can screw up pull preparations where you cast Stormcaller on, or Stormkeeper on the pull. So there's some weird Maelstrom there on AoE, but it's awkward. Like, you have to almost regular Chain Lightning, then Stormkeeper, and then Chain Lightning, and then Earthquake, and then Stormkeeper, Chain Lightning again, which is kind of awkward, but that is what I was told to make sure I bring up at the end of the video. GCD-wise, I know, Pupper. Earth Shield, Tremor Totem, AG, and Ascendance are on. This was a bit of a sore point for actually casting. So you want to, like, you cast, and then you can actually start casting your meatballs when you are in Ascendance, which is kind of forced loss of the 15-second window here, which I don't know if that's just a point to slow down a bit of the gameplay. Oh, now I'm getting procs on Aftershock. Of course I am. Of course I am. So that's a weird one. You're just forced to lose a global, but all major cooldowns are like this now. I thought that they should have buffed Ascendance where you actually gain more Maelstrom during it now or something, or put it up to like 16 seconds or 18-second duration, just to make sure you don't lose a cast compared to what you're doing now. Of course, you're still getting the bonus crit damage on those meatballs when you are in Ascendance, but so be it. Those are the ending thoughts and conclusionary bits. I want to make sure I go over the war mode stuff just real quickly. So, war mode is turned on in your capital city of Orgrimmar or Stormwind. This is going to actually, this tooltip is wrong now. They did buff it in the recent build. It's 15% back up to XP from killing monsters and completing quests. It's also additional rewards for doing world quests at max level. And then on top of that, you gain more honor and you are sharded into the war mode in the open world where these talents above are active. And again, you are, of course, PvP flagged all the time. These are active in PvP islands, of course, and arenas and battlegrounds. The 15% XP went up from 10% because they just buffed all of the XP to level. So this just has to be updated in the tooltip. And the database, it's updated. So now there's a bit more of an incentive because they've made leveling a little slower. But people were doing leveling to 110 to 120 in like 6 to 8 hours, which is really fast. So now it'll be closer to between like 10 and 12 hours based on the initial numbers people talked about. So war mode, a little more beneficial in there if you want to level faster, but riskier. Pick your medallion talent. Go check out Wowhead's calculator or the WoW DB on MMO Champion to read through all of these, of course. And we just put Control Lava, which replaces Lava Surge. And this gives you the Lava Burst damage amp, and the Flame Shock damage over time has a 10% chance to reset the remaining cooldown of Lava Burst, and increases its damage by 25% up to 3 stacks. So it's less resets, but it's the big Lava Burst for PvP, or of course for world questing, if that's what you want to do. I don't know. Because you can sort of save up Lava Bursts between targets and then just bleh someone. Elemental Attunement gives you the 50 more Maelstrom, which means that Aftershock has a potential to chain ridiculously with the 60 locked Earth Shock. Because if you have enough to cast 2 Earth Shocks, you're rolling it twice in a row. And if one resets or both keep resetting, you're going to keep juggling and Earth Shocking over and over and over and over and over again. And of course, we just grab Sky Fury Totem for the extra crit on spells and heals for yourself and your party. But you can take and choose whatever you'd like. You can put together whatever build you would like to put together. You grab Earth Fury if you like, which is the Earth Shock. When you have at least 100 Maelstrom, will stun the target for 2 seconds. So you can take your range stun if you'd like. But otherwise, that is the PvP War Mode talents. Again, read through these. Lightning Lasso still exists. Really fun. Make your own combination. And again, if you have any more questions, comments, concerns, things to look at, or curiosities, there are a lot of extra resources and awesome people to talk to in the Earth Shrine Discord. Check out the video description box down below for, of course, all of my socials. Go to the schedule and Discord guide. Those are all the Discords across all of the classes in the game. You can go click on the little icon, hover over it, get a link. Discord is totally free. Put on your phone, desktop app, wherever you want to do that. Go check that out if you'd like to. Links are all down below, as well as my social links as well. So if you want to follow myself on Twitter, when I post new videos, when live streams are going up, all that good stuff is right there in the description box, as well, of course, the VOD for the entire testing process. If you want more of this discussion, there's a lot of it, more of it. If you want all the nitty-gritty, go for it. But that's the Elemental Shaman in a nutshell, kind of. I didn't forget anything in my notes, right? Nope, that's quite literally everything. The enhancement video will be coming up next, and it'll probably be just as long because there's lots of stuff to talk about enhancement as well. And again, you all expect me to talk about my main more often. But check out the other videos on the playlist. Go back to the first pass if you'd like to. But regardless, thank you very much for listening to my rambles and watching the walkthrough for Elemental. I will see you all in the next BFA Beta second pass video. We did it. Let's go.